This past summer, Shaked Naftalovich and I worked as counselors together in the same bunk at Mosheva Ba'ir. Before the counselors arrived each day, the staff gathered together to daven shacharit, say Tehillim, and listen for news of the missing boys. Each day, we were heartbroken to hear that there was nothing to hear. The second week of camp, our Eidah had a trip. We, along with 8 or 9 other staff members, accompanied about 60 8- and 9-year-olds to see an interactive show and play in the arcade. We were up and down, throwing rubber chickens, pieing other counselors in the face, getting slimed. Neither of us were checking our phones. At the end of the show, our Rosh Eidah told us to bring our kids over to the snacks and then meet him in the corner of the room. I was expecting him to give us an update about the camp day, tell us that maybe the bus was running late, or we were finishing up early and needed to plan an activity for when we got back to camp. But then he turned to us and said, "The bodies of the boys were found." I think he kept talking, but I didn't hear a thing. Shaked and I looked at each other, and we both had tears in our eyes. I later noticed that one of the male counselors, an Israeli friend of my brother, was no longer in the room. I went looking for him and found him outside. He had lived in the same town as Gilad Sha'ar before he came to America. While his family was here on Shlichut, Gilad's family was renting hotels. They also gave us the procedure for how to discuss it with the campers. Our campers were so young, and it's hard to know what to say and when to say it. We were told that if our campers were to say anything to us, we were to tell them that there were people for them to talk to, but it's not something that we're going to discuss during the camp day. But the truth is, it's not just hard to discuss these things with our campers. It's hard to discuss these things with our peers and our parents and our teachers too. It's never been easy, and it won't get any easier. Today is a day where we knock down our comfort barriers, and we try to talk about it anyway. Yom Hazikaron is a day dedicated to commemorating fallen soldiers and victims of terror. In the past 67 years, there have been 2,526 victims of terror and 23,320 IDF soldiers who lost their lives defending Israel. In total, there have been 25,846 people who lost their lives for our country and our nation. Just like we did last week on Yom HaShoah and every year on Yom HaZikaron, in a moment we are going to watch a video and hear the siren that sounds in Israel on Yom HaZikaron. When you hear the siren commemorating all those who have been lost, please rise for a moment of silence. This year at SAR, we are focusing on the events from this past summer. Throughout our program today, we will be hearing from and about soldiers and victims of terror from the operation in Gaza to Eitan. SAR would like to express our gratitude to stand with us for bringing us heroes of Israel, soldiers who have served and protected our precious homeland. Lital, a journalist and anchor for a news website in Israel, was born in Ashkelon and served as a combat soldier in the IDF. Lital is proud of her service and strongly believes that such service is falsely portrayed in media around the world. Lital considers it a duty and an honor to contribute whatever she can to her country, which led her to choose service in the Border Police Unit. She served at checkpoints, stations aimed at thwarting terrorist attacks, which is a position usually held by male IDF soldiers. Please join me in welcoming Lital.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having us. I had to step outside because the moment that the songs started, I just started crying. It was very emotional for me, and I didn't really want to embarrass myself, so I decided I'm going to stay out and the songs part, and then come back when I will need to start speaking. So my name is Lital. I live in Tel Aviv. I work. I'm a reservist. I work as a journalist and a news anchor for a news website in Israel. And I'm doing this tour for Stand With Us. It's an organization educating about Israel. It's very a special day for me to be able to speak during our Memorial Day. As you all know, it's it's basically the saddest day in Israel. And I think I'm very privileged to be able to speak in behalf of our people, of our country, and to share my stories from the army. And I think it's also a unique time for us, this period of time between Holocaust Day and Memorial Day. The fact that we were born for a state, that we were born I was born to a situation where I already had a state, but my grandparents didn't, and I think it's something that we always need to take into consideration and never take it for granted, because unfortunately we're still fighting our war of independence, and we still have to have an army to guard us. And when I joined the army, it was pretty clear to me I wanted to do a meaningful service, and I wanted to do the same as the guys, so I volunteered to be a combat soldier. I was serving in that position for 3 years. The service in Israel is mandatory, as you all know. Thank you. Thank you. Women are doing 2 years usually, and men are doing three years. I was doing 3 years because I volunteered to be a combat soldier, and that's why I'm still doing my reserve service, which means once or twice a year I'm going back into my uniforms to train, to do all kinds of different military positions. As you all know, Israel is a very small place, and basically if I'm driving from my house in Tel Aviv only 40 minutes to the Hamas-controlled Gaza, or only an hour and a half to the border with Lebanon, or 2 hours to the border with Syria, you're realizing that when you're joining the army, you're guarding your house, your home, your friends, and you understand that you have to do that because it's a necessity, because we don't live in Switzerland, a country with little worries for its very existence. And I think, and that's why it was also important for me to go into serve into combat. And I always tell that to women, especially, how it's important to constantly expand the barriers or the borders of what you think you're capable of doing with yourself, because in a lot of the times, society kind of dictating us. And I remember that when I was in high school, I used to, when the guys were playing soccer or basketball during sports classes, we usually played with hula hoops. That was like the most extreme sports that we were doing, and I think that the army gave me the opportunity to understand that my mentally and physical abilities are wider than what I thought of myself. And I was serving around the Second Intifada, and Israel had known one of its most painful years. We had suicide bomb attacks 2 or 3 times a week. We had the rockets from Gaza. Unfortunately, we still have those. And I can't really describe to you what it means like to be an 18-year-old girl who goes out to a pizza while her mom is at home worrying sick when she'll be back. An 18-year-old who goes to a club and doesn't really think about what to wear, just about, is it safe? Should I go? Because We had suicide bomb attacks literally in every public place, from shopping malls to restaurants to nightclubs, and it was a very, very scary time to live. Luckily, since then, we built a security fence to prevent from people getting into Israel without being checked, and it decreases by almost 100% the amount of those attacks. And I served in the border guard. It's a special unit that has total equality between men and women. Women can apply for the same positions, do the same jobs as the men, do the same courses. And it's important to say that we have women in combat since 1995, which is very unique for Israel. Only in the recent few years, the U.S. Army started integrating women into combat. And one of the reasons for the IDF to do that is the importance of physical examine other women, because obviously men can't do that. So that's why we have women from 1995. So I want to share with you one story from my time of the Army. I was serving for half a year in the area of Hebron and on the area around it, around that area. And I was doing various positions, from patrolling to security missions to handling security checkpoints. And in an ideal world, Israel wouldn't have needed those security checkpoints. People could have just freely moved from one place to the other, live side by side. But those security checkpoints are a necessity, because they basically save lives, and all of you know that. We all go through that when we travel somewhere, when we go to the airport. And I want to share with you one story from a shift I had around the area of outside of Hebron. I was standing at a checkpoint in the blazing sun for like 6 or 7 hours with my helmet, with my gear on me, and an ambulance pulls out. And inside of the ambulance, there was a heavily pregnant Palestinian woman, and she was in a rush to get across. She started yelling something in Arabic. I didn't fully understood what she was saying, but I knew that I need to let her get across as fast as I can. But on the other hand, I knew the terrorists are using time and again children, women, disabled people, because that would be the easiest way to operate a terror attack. And I decided to make the call, and I told my commander that we have to check everyone on the ambulance, and we have to check that woman. And we checked the paramedic, we checked the driver, I checked the pregnant woman, and we checked the vehicle itself. And underneath one of the seats, we found explosive devices. And I knew that if I would have just let that ambulance get in across without being checked, it would have gotten to Haifa, to Netanya, to Tel Aviv, and it would have cost many innocent civilians' lives. And that's just one case out of so many that we need to deal with on a daily basis when you're facing that, and when you're joining the army. And we're getting a lot of questions in our talks from people who are asking us, if Gaza is shooting rockets at you for the past 16 years and you have terror attacks, why are you still aiding them? Why you still have whole units that, and Elad will elaborate that later, that aiding the Palestinians, that sending leaflets before bombing those areas that the rockets were being shot from. And I always say that this is who makes us who we are. This is our moral code. This is the Jewish values, the Jewish spirit. And if we lose that, we'll basically lose ourselves. And that's why I'm so proud to serve, to be served in the IDF, and to be able to take part of it. I think that the first thing that you get when you're joining the army is this little booklet with the moral code of the IDF, even before we're getting our uniform. And I think that's what makes us so special and so unique. Even now in Memorial Day, the way that we pay respect to the fallen soldiers, to the soldiers who gave their lives in order for us to live in a safe place. I think it's unbelievable, because you really can't see that anywhere else in the world. Here in the state, Memorial Day is a shopping day, it's a holiday, while in Israel it's basically the saddest day of the year. So it's important for me to sum up and to say that I want peace more than anything in the world. And I think that you can pick any Israeli and he would have tell you the same feeling of growing up in Israel, with the feeling of our parents always telling us, when you'll be 18, you won't need to go to the army because there won't be an army, there'll be peace. And I think that this is our basic hope for the future, to will achieve peace. But until that day will come, I will not apologize for defending my country, and I will not apologize for my right to live. So thank you very much.
בניה שראל, זיכרונו לברכה, who was a major in the Givati Commando Unit, sacrificed his life last summer for the sake of Israel. Bnaya is my mother's cousin. I could have told you a lot about his bravery in the battlefield. I could have told you about his unbelievable courage, walking in front of his soldiers, entering terrorist houses and death tunnels, shouting, "Acharai." I could have told you about his nomination for an award from the Chief of Staff during the Lebanon War, when Bnaya found himself under fire, surrounded by terrorists, caught in a small room with a bunch of his soldiers. He turns the situation around, encouraging his soldiers to shoot back by saying, "Who's coming to die with me?" I could have told you how when he got injured and hospitalized, he went back to the fighting zone because he couldn't leave his soldiers alone. In this battle, he met his death. I could have told you more and more about this very young, very strong, very talented combatant and commander. But I want to share with you a little more than that. I want to share with you the beauty of his character and personality. Bnaya was full of energy and happiness. His bravery manifested itself in funny ways. When he was a teenager, the Chief of Staff visited Kiryat Arba, the place where Bnaya grew up. Bnaya sneaked into his car, wore his uniform with his ranks, and took pictures. Years later, as a valued officer in the army, Bnaya found himself in the same airplane with a former Chief of Staff, Bugi Elon, now the Minister of Defense. Bnaya told him that they had already met and showed him the pictures. Ya'alon laughed and replied, "Ha'me'ez menatzeach," the one who dares is the one who wins. Bnaya was also an example for the solidarity of all Israeli society. He was raised in a settlement near Hebron and learned in a yeshiva, but got engaged to Gali Nir, who grew up in a kibbutz in a secular family. They were a unique and lovely couple and were supposed to get married 3 weeks after Bnaya fell in battle. At his funeral, Bnaya's friends read a text he sent them on the night before he went into battle in Gaza. "Whether the war is over or not, we will celebrate my wedding together on August 21st. Gali said in the eulogy, "I want to thank you for the 3 best years of my life. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for coming into my life and for teaching me so much. Thank you for your infinite love and your laughter and for your eyes that will stay with me for the rest of my life." Besides for being a loving boyfriend, Bnaya was a caring commander. In his shiva, his soldiers told his parents how connected they felt to Bnaya. A lone soldier who met Bnaya by chance described his meeting. "I was in a very difficult situation, and it was hard for me in Israel, but I did not tell anyone. I don't know why, since I did not know him at all, but I felt as comfortable as possible speaking to Bnaya. Bnaya calmed me down and told me that everything will be all right. He suddenly reached into his pocket and took out 200 shekel. Tears immediately came down my face, and I did not want to take his money. Bnaya then hugged me and told me, 'Everything is okay. I'm giving you this gift out of love.' I took the money and thanked him. We exchanged numbers, and Bnaya would call me all the time to make sure everything was all right. Ze Bnaya she'ekarti. Adam neshama im lev zahav. That was the Benaya that I knew, a kind man with a heart of gold. During the war, Benaya did not allow parents to visit on a regular basis in order to keep the soldiers focused and to avoid putting their parents in danger. When he himself was evacuated after being injured, he told his mother on the phone that she couldn't come visit him. As long as my soldiers can see their parents, he said, I must adhere to that as well. When his mother replied, but your soldiers wouldn't know, Benaya said, but I would know. Benaya is a role model to every person in Israel and definitely is to me. Yehi zichro baruch.
שלא יחזור אלייך, שלחי אותו מלא ללכת למקומו, לשיבולים הכפופות ברוח, מלא לחלוץ את עליו, לרוץ להשתובב עם הרוח, מלא לשרוק ולזמר, לדלג על אבני דרך, מלא לחיות כפי שחי, אל תתעצבי אהובך לא יחזור אליי.
הוריו חובל קברניט שלי, סופה כבר שכחה, אל הנמל שבעת קרבות, חותרת ספינתך, זרי פרחים פעמונים, המון אדם צוהל, באשר ספינת הקרב שלך קרבה אל הנמל, אבוי ליבי, 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 או כתם דם שוטט, באשר רב החובל שלי, תונח קר ומת. ליבי, 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 או כתם דם שוטט.
הקשב לכל פעמון, לך כל הגדלים כולם, לך תרועות המון, רק בעקבותך ביום חגך ינוע הקהל, ובכולם תקוות עולם, לנס המיוחל, אבוי ליבי, 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 כתם דם שוטט, באשר רב החובל שלי, צונח קר ומת. ליבי, 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 כתם דם שוטט.
הוריו חובל אבי שלי, זרועי תתמוך ראשך. סיוט הוא לראותך פתאום נופל על סיפונך. רב החובל אינו עונה, שפתיו חברו ללמוד. הוא לא יחוש מגע ידי, הוא לא ייתן להיות. אבוי ליבי ליבי ליבי, או כתם דם שותת, באשר רב החובל שלי צונח קר ומת. ליבי ליבי ליבי, או כתם דם שותת.
Just over 2 years ago, Max Steinberg returned to Los Angeles from a whirlwind tour from Israel. He was 22 at the time. Only 3 months after returning to California, Steinberg went back to Israel in September to become a soldier in the Golani Infantry Brigade, one of the IDF's most decorated units. Just after 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, July 20th, 2014, as he and his unit, Golani's 13th Battalion, made their way down to a Gaza City street, Max's armored personal carrier was struck multiple times. The explosion killed 7 soldiers, including Max. Max's father said, although he was an American, he was truly connected to Israel. He belonged there. Max is survived by his parents and 2 siblings.
I heard the door. The minute I heard an Israeli accent, I thought something's wrong. And he just said, there's been an accident. And I said, is he okay? What happened? Or, like, how severely is he injured? They kept kind of staring at me, just looking at me. And then I said, I think I must have said, did he die or is he dead? And then they said, yes.
Max and my sister Paige and myself, we all decided to go to Israel on our birthright trip.
Part of his trip was to go to the Mount Herzl.
When he went to the cemetery, Mount Herzl, I think that really, really impacted him.
We were told that he had made a statement out loud that I'm going to come back and I'm going to do what these guys did, to serve and to protect Israel. We didn't recognize or believe how passionate he was about this.
He absolutely would not do anything but Golani, and he wanted Golani 13. And they told him no at first, and he's like, I don't care, send me home, send me to jail. That's it.
Just looking at him makes you smile, because Max's smile was, from ear to ear.
This is where my love for Israel is. They were so appreciative of our son sacrificing his life.
30,000 people is a lot of people. It was very moving. You realize, your life has a meaning, and you have only a certain amount of time to, live it right. And that's a constant reminder from the day it happened until the rest of my life.
I think that was his mission. I think it was his mission. And you know what? Mission accomplished.
כעת במשעול העובר. כי ילד הולך לו לאיבוד, רבות ידיים מושטות מבקשות את העזרה, להמשיך איתה את המסע.
בצדים הפרחים כאילו איבדו את זהותם, מחפשים עוד קרן אור שתעזור, עוד לגימה קטנה של מים ממעייני החוכמה, תביא להם את התקווה.
ארים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים במרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא. מאין יבוא עזרי?
ואני כעת בנופים חדשים, הצעדים הם נעשים כה איטיים. מה יש שם שאין פה? שאלת אותי עובר. מה בלב אתה שומע?
קשיש העיר כשעל גבו מונח כל עברו, מביט סביב ומחפש את עולמו. כשההווה כל כך קשה, לא אומר דבר, ארים ראשי אל המחר.
ארים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים במרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא. מאין יבוא ארים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים במרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא. מאין יבוא עזרי?
On June 12, 2014, 3 Israeli teenagers were kidnapped at the hitchhiking stop at Alon Shvut in Gush Etzion. The 3 teenagers were Naftali Frankel, age 16 from Nof Ayalon, Gilad Sha'er, age 16 from Talmon, and Eyal Yifrach, age 19 from Elad. Gilad Sha'er called the police emergency hotline to report the kidnapping, While the IDF started searching for them, Jews all over the world came together in tefillah, hope, and actions to try and bring them home. On June 30th, search teams found the bodies of the 3 missing teenagers in a field northwest of Hebron. They had been killed shortly after their abduction.
A father hopes, a mother trusts, a nation unites. Our day has turned to night. A cell phone rings, panic strikes. Tell me, what are we to do? Hashem, our only hope is you. Hashem, we call to you, we pray out loud in a strong voice. Please, Hashem, bring back our boys. We all hear, we all read, we can't believe a day has turned to night. How insane, we feel the pain. Tell us what to do. Hashem, our only hope is you. Hashem, we call to you, we pray out loud in a strong voice. Please, Hashem, bring back our boys. Hashem, anu banecha, mitpalelim elecha, anu tefila, shetashivem habayta. Strong voice, please Hashem, bring back our boys. Oh, please Hashem, bring back our boys.
זה לא אותו הבית, אתם אינכם ולא תוכלו לשוב. השבילים הסתירה ובשמיים היית, אך החיטה צומחת שוב. השבילים הסתירה ובשמיים היית, אך החיטה צומחת שוב. מן העפר המר היריות עולות, ועל הדשא ילד בכלבו, ועל החדר ויורדים לילות, מה שבו ומה שבליבו. זה לא אותו העמק, זה לא אותו הבית, אתם אינכם ולא תוכלו לשוב. השבילים הסתירה ובשמיים היית, אך החיטה צומחת שוב. השבילים הסתירה ובשמיים היית, אך החיטה צומחת שוב. לכל מה שהיה אולי יהיה לעד, זרח השמש שוב השמש בא, עוד השירים שרים אחרי יוגד, כל המחול וכל האהבה. אם זה אותו העמק, אם זה אותו הבית, אבל אתם לא תוכלו לשוב. ועת קרה ועת קרה ועת קורה עדיין, שהחיטה צומחת שוב. ואיך קרה ואיך קרה ואיך קורה עדיין, שהחיטה, כן החיטה צומחת שוב.
We are privileged to have not one, but two soldiers with us this morning. Elad was born in Israel, but lived for 4.5 years in California growing up. In the IDF, Elad served as an officer in the coordination of government activities in the Territories Unit, which coordinates aid to Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. He first served in the Gaza District Coordinator Liaison and later in the West Bank city of Hebron. He ended his military service in the Civil Administration headquarters in Beit El. During his time in the IDF, Elad was directly responsible for the humanitarian goods going into Gaza and acted as the mediator between the IDF and international organizations. A recent alumnus of the 2013 Stand With Us Israel Fellowship, Elad is now studying economics and management at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and he loves traveling and diving. Please join me in welcoming Elad.
All right. Thank you for having us. If you guys don't find any tissues in the school, that's us. My colleague and I, we finished it all. It's great to be here on this very special day. It's not a simple day for Israelis, for Jews, but mainly for Israelis. So my name is Elad. I'm 27 years old, from Hod HaSharon, a small place near Tel Aviv. In the past few years, I've been living in Beersheba, studying economics and management down south in the desert. Growing up in Sunnyvale, California was as far as possible from the difficult 90s that Israel went through. My family and I lived there for almost 5 years because of my dad's work. Silicon Valley, booming 90s. Every once in a while, the CNN breaking news showing another horrific attack in Israel, another bus being torn to pieces by terrorists who opposed the peace agreements and the peace way or the peace process. Going back to Israel, finishing high school, and joining the Israeli Defense Forces, I immediately knew, basically because of the education that I got from my parents, I knew that I wanted to be that one with the responsibility, the one with the ranks, the one that tells other people to follow him, that acharai that you just heard before, as Bnaya was saying to his soldiers. I wanted to be the one that leads the soldiers, that has responsibility for lives of other Israeli young men and women. I served in a pretty interesting unit, yet a very unheard of unit called Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories. Now, the big title might give you, or you can guess what we deal with, but we dealt with delicate issues of humanitarian matter on a daily basis. This unit is basically a mediator between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. An army unit with the main purpose of minimizing the effect of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on Palestinian civilian population. Now, this goes back to the fundamental values and the moral codes of the Israeli Defense Forces and the understanding that the population on both sides, they're not the enemy. The Palestinian population, obviously, is not the enemy of this conflict. Israel has been struggling and fighting a vicious terror organization called Hamas that takes their own people and puts them in the line of fire, takes their own people as hostages. Just one story from my service that I wanted to share with you guys. It would be my first position just near the Gaza Strip, a place called Erez. It's a place where there's a big terminal building, kind of airport-looking building, that Palestinians can cross from the Gaza Strip into Israel. Now, on a side note, I just want to say that thousands of Palestinians go into Israel every year to get medical treatment for super complicated things that they can't get in the hospital where they live. They can get it in Israel. Cancer treatments and lung disease and pediatric care and super complicated things, they get it in Israel. Thousands do that every year. So I served in that place, just near that crossing. I was walking around the base with a friend of mine. We were talking about what we did last weekend and what plans we have for the weekend ahead, just like normal 20-year-old kids. And we also talked about a little security threat that we got, intelligence threat, saying that Hamas terrorists are building a tunnel under our base with the purpose of blowing the base up on its people, obviously, on its soldiers. They wanted to blow the base up or kidnap soldiers or blow the base up and then kidnap the soldiers or the bodies, as we know that they're capable of doing. So we were walking around and then, like a movie, like a Hollywood movie, a huge explosion found us, followed by a rain of rocks and mud and debris from the sky. As you can imagine, a pretty hectic place to be. We quickly thought that it was the tunnel. We ran to shelter. Some soldiers were already wounded and shocked. Eventually, we're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids, not much older than you guys here, that sitting here today. We quickly made it to safe compounds. We quickly also understood that it wasn't the tunnel. That tunnel is still on hold and waiting for Operation Day. It was mortar shells fired at us from the Palestinian side. A mortar shell, for those of you who don't know, and it's good that you don't know, it's something about this big, fired from one side to the other, and you don't want to be on the other side. You don't want to be where it lands. It's not a good place to be. So the terrorists on the Palestinian side of the Gaza Strip, they were firing at the same base, at the same people that were supposed to help and aid their people. So the Hamas leadership is firing at us, and we're supposed to help the Palestinian civilians, the Palestinian people. Pretty complicated. Now, just a few seconds before that happened, a young Palestinian boy arrived at the Palestinian side of the crossing to enter Israel, to get medical treatment in Israel, cancer treatment that he needed to go through. Now, the crossing manager, which was a much older guy than I was, much more experienced person, he closed down the crossing. He has a security issue on his hands now. He needs to make sure that his men and women will make it safely to their wife and kids and on time. And he doesn't care about anything else right now. But there I was, a young 20-year-old kid with new ranks on his shoulders, trying to convince the man that the humanitarian issue that we have at hand, this young 4-year-old Palestinian boy, is more important than personal safety, is more important than the safety of his own men, of my own men. And this issue is the issue that we need to address immediately. Not a simple task to juggle between humanitarian issues and security issues at the same time, in the same place, same area. Pretty complicated, as you guys can imagine. After a few very hectic moments, calling every high-ranking official possible, the crossing was reopened, and this young boy made it to his appointment on time. This is just a tiny glimpse of our routine work, daily routine work, dealing with the civilian population on both sides. And just a tiny glimpse to show you how the morals, the IDF morals and values, they lead us and they guide us in whatever we do. We wake up in the morning in the army, we look at the list of tasks that we have to do, and this is basically the guideline. These morals tell us what to do, what not to do, and we follow them, and basically we praise these morals. Now, the other side, the terrorists on the other side, the vicious terror organization, it's unbelievable what they do to their own people. I just want to talk to you a bit about what happened last summer, Protective Edge, the operation. We were coordinating thousands of trucks going into Gaza of goods donated by the world, donated by Israel. We're talking about building materials and food and medicine. We were coordinating that, and it went into the Gaza Strip. And at the same time, we got rocket firing, as we've been getting for the past almost 18 years. Rocket firing from one side to the other, and trucks of goods from one side to the other. Unbelievable thing to grasp. Hamas terrorists would take their own people and force them to go to the rooftops and to protect the rockets and serve as human shields for the terrorists. There's a cartoon showing and basically explaining this whole situation. On one side, you have the Israeli soldier with his helmet and his gun protecting a baby carriage. And on the other side, you have the Hamas terrorist standing behind a baby carriage. And that baby carriage is basically a human shield. This is just a tiny glimpse of what I did in the IDF and what we went through last summer. I just want to sum up and say that everything that I did in the Army and everything that my unit does in the Army is from the understanding that showing people that there's another way, another option is the way to go. Showing the civilians, the Palestinian civilians, that terror is not good and is not getting them anywhere and is not making peace come any faster and it's not assisting anyone. And showing them prosperity and showing them a good life and how things could be different. This is what we try to do. As I said, from the understanding that the civilians, they're in the line of fire and they suffer from both sides. We commemorate what we went through and what we're still going through on our side. But we understand that this conflict is not a good thing. We're dealing with a terror organization. I always sum up and say, I wish for peace. We wake up in the morning and, wish that peace will come. But I'm a realistic person. I know that we're dealing with a terror organization and that peace won't come that fast. And until those days of peace will come, we will stand guard and keep defending our country. And you guys are our front line here, basically. We are the front line of Israel in the field, in the land. But you guys are our front line here. Thank you for your support and keep up the good work. Thank you.
On Yom Hazikaron, the entire nation remembers its debt and expresses eternal gratitude to its sons and daughters and honors those who gave their lives to the achievement of the country's independence and its continued existence. It is a day of grief, but also a day of pride. It is a day of mourning, but also a day in which we remember why and what we are fighting for. Although we cry over the loss of our loved ones, we learn from their courage, devotion, and sacrifice. We thank them for the enormous gift they have given us. For as the poet Natan Alterman has said, the state will not be given to the Jewish people on a silver platter. Please rise for the reciting of Yizkor and the lighting of the remembrance candle.
יזכור עם ישראל את בניו ובנותיו, הנאמנים והאמיצים, חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, וכל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים במערכות העם, ואנשי קהילות המודיעין, הביטחון, המשטרה ושירות בתי הסוהר, אשר חירפו נפשם במלחמה על תקומת ישראל, וכל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי מרצחים מארגוני הטרור. יזכור ישראל ויתברך בזרעו, ויאבל על זיו העלומים וחמדת הגבורה, וקדושת הרצון ומסירות הנפש. של הנספים במערכה הכבדה. יהיו חללי מערכות ישראל, עטורי הניצחון, חתומים בלב ישראל לדור דור.
Please rise and repeat after Kochava as she recites Perek Kuf Chait Aleph from Sefer Tehillim.
Shir Lamalot Asai Nail al Haharim Ma'ayin Yavo Azri. Azri Mim Adonai Oseh Shamayim V'aretz. Al Yitain Lamot Reglacha Al Yanum Shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha v'oecha me'ata ve'ad olam. Please continue standing and say it along with Shaked as she recites the Mishaberach for Chayalei Tzahal.
Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, hu yivarech et Chayalei Tzva Hagana leYisrael, ואנשי כוחות הביטחון, העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו, מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה, ובכל מקום שהם, ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו, נגפים לפניכם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיינו מכל צרה וצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם ויעטרם בחץ הישועה ובעטרת ניצחון. ויקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם, להילחם לכם, עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם, ונאמר אמן. Yom Hazikaron is a day dedicated to commemorating fallen soldiers. Though in today's program we chose to focus specifically on the soldiers who lost their lives in Sukkot this summer, we must also remember the many other soldiers who fought for Israel and lost their lives in the process. Please continue standing for a tikvah led by the choir.
I'd like to thank the soldiers who came from Stand With Us, Elad and Lital. I'd like to thank Rachel and Maria and all the students who participated this morning in the choir for the beautiful singing. We're going to make our way back to class. There's a few minutes still. If you'd like to come down and have a word or speak with the soldiers, they're right down in front on your way to class.